All right, buckle up, everybody, because we are diving deep today. Deep into one of the most, well, intense nights in South Korean history, really, in recent memory. And
Definitely intense.
we are talking about martial law, declared just a few days ago.
Just a few days ago, crazy.
First time in 45 years.
Unbelievable.
We've got a whole stack of Korean news sources, and we're going to go through them, break them down together, figure out just how this all happened in such a short time.
Yeah, because it really did happen fast, like shockingly fast. A real reminder that political stability, well, it can change just like that.
Absolutely. I mean, 1979. That's what comes to mind, right?
Yeah.
The military coup, all the unrest.
Still a vivid memory for so many.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So to see martial law declared again, even if it didn't last long, unsettling. I mean, really unsettling.
Absolutely sent shockwaves through the whole country.
For sure.
So to understand how we got here, we got to rewind a bit, go back to the tension between President Yoon and the opposition party. And things really boiled over with the impeachment of the Supreme Audit Institution's chief.
Oh, yeah. And that, I mean, from Yoon's perspective, that was a direct attack.
Totally. He saw it as a challenge to his authority, absolutely.
Okay, so that's where we are. That's the background. Now let's zoom in on the night of December 3rd. Starts with an emergency cabinet meeting at 10 p.m.
10 p.m., hastily convened. And from what we can tell, it wasn't exactly a smooth meeting. Multiple high-ranking officials, the prime minister, the deputy prime minister for economy, the foreign minister.
You were all there.
All there. And they all had serious doubts about this whole martial law idea.
Really? That's significant. I mean, you think their voices would carry some weight?
Right.
What were they so worried about?
Well, mainly the fallout,
Yeah.
the potential economic and diplomatic fallout. I mean, South Korea, it's a global player, right? Any sign of instability, it could have huge repercussions worldwide, really.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the international relations angle.
Damaging relationship.
Exactly, especially with key allies.
And yet, Yoon still went ahead with it. It's like he was set on this path, no matter what.
It seems that way, yeah. He was deeply frustrated, that much is clear. He saw the opposition's actions, that impeachment especially, as a direct challenge to his legitimacy.
Yeah.
He felt he had to act, had to reassert his authority, combat what he called anti-state forces.
Anti-state forces. Wow. That's a loaded term.
It is. Paints the opposition as like a threat to national security, not just a political rival. Creates this sense of urgency, like extreme measures are necessary.
Right, right. But it also makes you wonder, was this a legitimate response to a crisis? Or was martial law, was it a political tool?
A good question. A question a lot of people are asking.
Yeah, for sure. So we've got a determined Yoon, a cabinet meeting that seems like, well, kind of a formality. Just how rushed was all this?
Well, the meeting itself, 20 minutes.
20 minutes for a decision this massive. That's wild.
Yeah, it speaks to that urgency Yoon was feeling. Or maybe, like some critics have suggested, the outcome was already decided. Whatever the case, immediately after that meeting, boom, address to the nation, martial law declared.
And that was at
10:23 p.m.
10:23 p.m. And that's when things really start to, I don't know, snowball.
Absolutely, things move fast, like lightning speed. 11:25 p.m., General Park En-soo, he's appointed martial law commander. 52 minutes after the declaration.
Wow. That time frame, I mean, it kind of makes you wonder about how prepared they really were. Was this a detailed plan ready to go, or was this all, I don't know, improvised?
Yeah, were any other options even considered? Big questions, and we need answers, and the timeline just keeps getting more intense. 11:30 p.m., proclamation number 1, restricts access to the National Assembly building, orders government buildings closed.
Okay, this is where it starts to feel like a lot more than just a warning, right? This is about controlling the narrative, shutting down dissent.
Absolutely. By cutting off access to the National Assembly, Yoon was effectively silencing any opposition, consolidating his power.
Yeah.
It was a bold move. Some might even say reckless.
And of course, things didn't stop there. 12:39 a.m., the Seoul Metropolitan Police Agency issues an Yoo-ho emergency alert.
Yeah.
The highest level alert there is, usually reserved for huge disasters or national security threats. And this is when this is when it really hits a boiling point.
Yeah.
The troops arrive at the National Assembly building.
Just imagine being one of those lawmakers inside that National Assembly building. It's past midnight. The highest alert level just went out, and you hear troops are coming.
Must have been surreal. Terrifying, really.
Absolutely.
We've got accounts from over 150 National Assembly members. They all gathered in the main assembly hall. Basically, they were defying the order.
Yeah.
This wasn't just politics anymore. This was a full-blown standoff between the executive branch and the legislature.
Absolutely a critical moment for South Korean democracy, for sure. And it gets even more chilling, actually, when you consider the testimony we have from one of the soldiers. He was part of that martial law force. He said straight up that their orders were to remove all lawmakers from the building.
Remove all lawmakers. That's not even crowd control. That's shutting down the entire National Assembly. I mean, this directly contradicts what the government said later, right?
Yeah.
About it just being a warning.
Yeah, a stark contrast between their actions and their explanations, for sure. President Yoon and Minister Lee Sang-min, they insisted they expected the National Assembly to overturn the martial law declaration. But if that's true, why order troops to physically remove the lawmakers? It doesn't really add up.
It's like they were anticipating a fight, prepared to use force to get their way. Which makes you think, what if those troops had actually succeeded? What would that have meant for South Korea, for their democracy?
It's a scary thought. I mean, the possibility of a total breakdown of democratic processes, it was real. Thankfully, the National Assembly held firm. 1 a.m., they pass a resolution, unanimously, demanding the lifting of martial law.
Wow, that's powerful. 190 lawmakers, all sides of the political spectrum coming together like that. They saw this for what it was, a power grab.
It really shows the resilience of South Korea's democracy. And it seemed to have an effect. Just 14 minutes after that resolution, the troops start pulling back from the National Assembly. The immediate crisis, it was over, at least for the moment.
But there's more to this story, right? We have to talk about what was happening over at the National Election Commission. Troops were sent there, too, at the same time.
Right, right. While all that drama was going down at the National Assembly, something just as worrying was happening at the Election Commission. And honestly, the details are even more unsettling.
More unsettling. How so?
Well, first of all, the number of troops sent to the Election Commission, it was actually bigger than the force sent to the National Assembly. And it happened before the Martial Law Command was even officially set up. That seems pretty significant, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, it does. It suggests the level of planning, like this wasn't just a spur-of-the-moment decision.
Exactly. And as if that wasn't strange enough, there were also reports of plainclothes agents inside the Election Commission building, agents from the Defense Security Support Command, and they specialized in IT specifically.
Hold on. The Defense Security Support Command, that's the military's intelligence agency? What were they doing there?
That's the big question, isn't it? And so far, the government hasn't given a good answer.
So they weren't just there to, secure the building. It sounds like they were trying to get their hands on some sensitive data.
Yeah, that's what the opposition believes. They're worried this was an attempt to, to seize control of election data, maybe to influence future elections or even mess with past results.
That's a chilling thought. I mean, that would completely undermine the whole point of democracy in South Korea. If a president can just use martial law to manipulate elections, that's terrifying.
It's a scenario that's definitely fueled a lot of suspicion and distrust, and the government's lack of transparency isn't helping.
What do you mean by lack of transparency?
Well, take the official timeline of events. It's full of holes. For example, the Minister of Health and Welfare, he was late to the emergency cabinet meeting. And when he got there, he voiced some serious concerns about Proclamation Number 1. He felt like it was targeting medical professionals specifically, that the language was too aggressive. It contradicted what the government was saying publicly about wanting to use dialogue and persuasion.
So even within the cabinet, there wasn't total agreement on how to handle the situation. And these concerns, they were just ignored.
Publicly, at least, yeah. And the fact that the Minister of Health and Welfare was late to the meeting, well, that's just one example of something that just doesn't seem right. There's also the issue of how the troops were deployed. The chain of command, it seems like it was bypassed.
So we've got conflicting stories, delayed notifications, potentially unauthorized actions. Sounds like a lot was happening behind closed doors.
Exactly. And this lack of transparency, it's incredibly damaging. It erodes public trust, makes people wonder what else is being hidden, what other actions were taken that we don't know about. These are questions that a democratic government should be able to answer openly and honestly.
So in the end, this martial law declaration, it lasted just 6 hours. But if things had gone differently, the consequences could have been huge. It's a reminder that things can change so fast and that democratic institutions, they're fragile.
Yeah, they are. And even though the immediate crisis was averted, this whole incident has revealed some serious vulnerabilities in South Korea's political system. I mean, the fact that a president even tried to use martial law like this, and that it took the entire National Assembly standing up to him to stop it, that's a big deal. That should concern everyone.
It really makes you think, about the state of things over there in
Mhm.
South Korea. I mean, what is all this escalation, this near miss? What does it say about how things are working in the government? The
Right.
level of trust.
It's a worrying sign, no doubt. I mean, this incident, it shows that there are people willing to go to extremes, to use extreme measures, to bypass the normal democratic processes, all to achieve political goals. That should be concerning for everybody. It doesn't matter what side you're on.
Yeah, absolutely. This wasn't just some, I don't know, some theoretical debate. This showed just how fast things can go off the rails, how important it is to protect those democratic processes.
And a big part of that is demanding transparency. We can't just let these shadowy operations happen, these backroom deals. The public has a right to know what happened that night. We need clear answers, not just, carefully crafted stories.
Right, right. So much happened in such a short time. It's been a wild ride going through all this whole timeline. It's chaotic
Yeah.
and honestly kind of terrifying.
Yeah.
And there are still so many unanswered questions.
Oh, absolutely. And that's the thing to remember. Don't just accept the official story, at face value. Keep asking the tough questions. Keep digging. What was the motivation behind all this? What were they hoping to achieve? And what needs to change to make sure this never happens again?
This deep dive, it's really shown us that democracy it's fragile. It needs constant attention, constant defense. It's also shown us the power of standing together, against those who would try to undermine it.
Yeah, for sure. This incident, it was unsettling, no doubt. But in the end, it showed the strength of South Korea's democracy. The National Assembly, they stood up for their institution, for the principles of democracy. That's something to hold on to.
So big questions still remain. What does this all mean for South Korea's democracy? What are the vulnerabilities? What's still hidden in the official narrative? These are questions worth thinking about,
Yeah.
worth exploring, and we encourage you to do just that. Stay informed, stay engaged, and never forget your voice matters. In a democracy, it's the most powerful tool we have. That's it for this deep dive. Thanks for listening.